Hello and welcome to the Homesick to Happy Movers podcast. I'm very excited to have you here with us today as we talk about homesickness, living far from home, and developing community where you are. Today I'm talking with my friend Hannah. Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, would you like to share a little bit more about yourself with the listeners?
Of course, yeah. So my name is Hannah, affectionately known as Hannah Canada, which is ironic because clearly I'm not Canadian in any way, shape or form, but that little nickname has stuck with me for a while now. I'm 41, I'm a mum of three incredible kids, all three of them Canadian. I have a very hardworking husband who is gone for about 2.5 weeks of every month. And I'm based in Hinton, Alberta, on the Rockies, for those that don't know the geography in Canada, but I'm originally from Wales in the UK.
Okay, awesome. And so you are living thousands of miles from your hometown. What led up to your big move?
Well, it's kind of one of those perfect storm situations. So I studied languages at university, spent a lot of time teaching English around the world, was very, very lucky with a father who also liked to travel. So we'd kind of done a lot of skiing trips and stuff together. I was working as a broker after university. So I sold mortgage and insurance products, one of like three women on a sales floor of like 100 people. It was very much a work hard, play hard mentality. We would work for 20 hours a day and party for 4. And it was great while, everything was up, right? Well, we all know what happened in 2007, 2008. The mortgage industry was just on its butt. Like, everyone had over mortgaged their homes, lenders had overcommitted themselves, and suddenly there was just no job anymore. So what I decided to do was go back to university and actually do my master's in teaching. So actually I did a postgraduate certificate in teaching, which was like a bridge, and then I began my master's in education, and very quickly realized that the lifestyle I had become part of, working in finance, wasn't going anywhere just because I was, retraining. I had a pretty hefty addiction at that point, and could see that perhaps a future in the UK wasn't going to be the right path for me. So I remembered this one place where me and my dad had been on numerous skiing vacations, and it was just somewhere that made me happy. It was somewhere that was very simple. It was very different to the wild, crazy lifestyle in the UK. The UK is a very busy place. This was a tiny little skiing town in the middle of the Canadian Rockies, and it appealed because, one, I had never used there, so it didn't fit with that kind of side of my life. And also, I just had always been so happy when we'd gone. So I packed up my dog, who was very young. She was like 9 months old. And I applied for a 3-year work permit as a student, because you could get it as a student. And then I sold everything I had. And I moved to this tiny little town in Alberta called Jasper.
So oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That had to take a lot of courage.
It did. And there was a million times where I wanted to change my mind. Like, I'm not even gonna try and sugarcoat it. I would do like, you guys call them yard sales, but we call them car boot sales in the UK. It's the same thing. And I was selling everything, right? Because there was no point bringing stuff up. My mom wasn't going to keep it for me indefinitely. And, I would be like selling all these little trinkets and things. And I would sit there and go, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to do this? But at no point did I really waver, because I wanted more for myself. I wanted a happier and a better life, and a more simple life. I also had worked and was working in the music industry at the time. And that's also very fast paced and very busy. And it is a similar kind of lifestyle. So I knew I didn't want any of that anymore, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's such a good place, but also a vulnerable place to be where, okay, I know I don't want this and I'm moving forward, but not sure what exactly you're moving forward into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the great unknown, right? Because you've been somewhere on vacation. I think I'd been to Jasper 3 or 4 times for like 2 weeks at a time. You've been somewhere on vacation, but that's a vacation memory. You really are going into the unknown. I didn't know how to get a job here. I didn't know how to write a resume as opposed to a CV, which is what we use in the UK. I didn't know if I'd be able to find somewhere that would take me and my dog. You know, there was so many uncertainties. I didn't have a vehicle when I first got here, and for like 2 years afterwards. There were so many unknown. But yeah, and it wasn't even a wanderlust. I just knew I needed to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Following your like your knowing inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was the first year like when you moved there?
So the first year was one of my best years because I made some really good friends. So the person who helped me the most when I first got here was a friend I had met on vacation. He actually was running like a reception of one of the hotels we stayed at every year. So he picked me up from the airport, which is like a 6-hour drive from Jasper. He let me stay at his place until I found a place where me and my dog could go. He treated my dog like his own. That was a huge comfort. And I'm going to say comfort because actually it can do the opposite, where you kind of just you stay in that little safe spot and you don't kind of go out and do your own thing. He was very good though, because he was also a world traveler himself. He encouraged me to get my own place. He encouraged me not to just stay at his, although there was space for another roommate. He encouraged me to find, a job that wasn't working where he worked, for example. So I was very lucky in that respect, that someone wanted to promote my independence and not just kind of go, come over here and you can be mine and I'll do everything for you. So that was a real blessing. The first year, I stumbled into a store that was like a business supply and services store. So we did like faxing, photocopying, creating graphics for people, lots of stationery, that kind of stuff, which in a small town in the mountains is a necessity. Back then, people didn't have, it was about 12, 13 years ago, people didn't have fax machines everywhere or even email everywhere. So, and the owners were British. They were a retired British couple who were both teachers. So I walked into a kind of an instant family, and they gave me a job on the spot. So I was vastly overqualified, but that wasn't really what I cared about. It was more about having an income and being able to have a steady income to find a place. So for the first year, I worked at this place called More Than Mail. I found a home with a guy that lived out of town 3 weeks out of every 4. It was a beautiful home. All I had to do was look after it and pay my room rent, and I basically had the run of the house. So that's kind of what the first year looked at. Lots of exploring, lots of taking my dog out everywhere, really getting to know a town that I had only ever seen for 2 weeks in the winter. So
Yeah. The exploring phase of a move, I feel like, is so beautiful and so fun because everything is new and everything like gets to be explored, and it's like a huge adventure.
Yeah, well, and it's like culturally too. So there was like a dual exploration going on, because I would take the dog and go walking out into the bush. Now, you have to remember, I come from the UK, which is a tiny little island. You're never more than 100 miles from the sea in any direction, to landlocked Alberta in the middle of these majestic Rocky Mountains. It was it was every time I went outside, it was like, whoa. So it was so cool. And like, I learned a lot of lessons. I learned to carry bear spray. I learned that my dog will fight a wild coyote if she thinks it's getting too close to me. I learned that she does not come back when she's called if she's chasing a deer. But I also learned that she would keep me going on a hike where I would have turned back out of either fear or exhaustion because of her boundless energy. She's no longer with me, unfortunately. She passed away this May, but she was a big part of my exploration phase because I had to get her out and I had to get her exercise. Culturally, going to the grocery store is such a shocker in a different country. I would be like looking for like, I mean, now there's way more British stuff available, but like I'd be looking for simple things that were simple to me and couldn't find them, and couldn't find what looked like a different brand alternative. The way everything was still done in checks here in Canada, we hadn't had checks in the UK for about 10 years before I left. So I didn't know I had to go get a checkbook to pay for stuff, and there was a big exploration phase on both sides.
Yeah. Was there a time where you slipped into loneliness?
So here's the thing. Yes, but I wouldn't necessarily put it just down to the fact that I moved, because I believe that inherently there's always been a slight loneliness in me, which perhaps led to my addictive behaviors. So I really missed my friends. I didn't miss the UK, funnily enough, and it's actually switched now because, yeah. So back then I didn't miss the UK so much as I missed my friends, and I was so homesick for that core group of friends that you have spent all that time with. And mine were very mixed, some from school, some from university, some from work, and I didn't have that here. And there were definitely some really lonely times. I unfortunately, after about a year, fell back into seeking the wrong things to fill that loneliness, which was really, tough, because, you think you've moved away from something and then you just find the same thing over and over again. And I know this isn't a recovery podcast, but the moving is still the best thing that I ever did, even though I had to learn some of the same lessons again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I like how you said that, like, you had a little bit of loneliness in you already, because loneliness is a journey, right? And usually there's a lot of mind work adjustments that we can make to step out of that loneliness. Looking back now, do you see any like things in your mindset that have changed, that helped you kind of to step out of that space?
100%. So for the longest time, I used to rely very heavily on a quote that talked, and I forget what it is now because it doesn't apply to me anymore, which is lovely, but it basically said, I'm always homesick because I don't have a home. And that's how I felt, because I didn't want to go back to the UK. I wasn't 100% sure that I was home here. I've lived in multitude of countries whilst traveling, so I felt like I didn't have a home. And so homesick for me was something that showed up in the form of reminiscing. And so good times with people, good events, that stuff would be what would come up and really tug at my heartstrings. And that's what I thought I was homesick for. Now, bearing in mind, this was right up until as recently as about 2 years ago, within the last 2 years. And so I had 3 kids. I had my husband, I had, my home, which I love. And then I realized that home wasn't a place, it was a feeling. And as my life has developed, so I got sober a little over 4 years ago, clean, a little over, people don't like it when I say sober because I wasn't a drinker, but to me, it's my sobriety journey. So my recovery began 4.5 years ago. I have never had a lapse. I've never had like a relapse of any kind. But it's been a journey within this journey. And as I found myself, that is where my homesickness started to dissipate, because I think I'd always pinned home on a person or people.
Yes.
And so that's been a huge mindset shift for me, for sure.
Yeah. And finding home in who you are. Right. Yes. That's awesome. That's very powerful too.
Yeah.
So what are some ways in your new area that you've established friendships?
So I'm very blessed. So my full-time day job, I work in a harm reduction agency. So for somebody in recovery, it's like a dream come true. I get to work with people that are in active addiction. I get to teach mental health and suicide prevention in schools. And I have a work family, both within my core agency, but also the other people in my town that are also involved in the same field. So you become quite a tight group of social workers, teachers, anyone who's basically trying to contribute to the future of this town, but this world as well. So definitely being blessed with a job that is kind of a passion project means that every time I actually choose to come into work, even if I don't have to. Like it's like my happy place. My family is here. That is a huge thing for me. I also have created very much a family. I have quite a successful network marketing business as well. And my whole kind of MO going into that was to create community. That was the one thing I wanted to do. And my eyes weren't really on the prize of success or anything like that. I have a really well-paying job. I didn't need to do it for money. I just really wanted to create something and somewhere where people felt safe. And so having that now is such a blessing, because I can go away, I can go on vacation, and I still have my home and my family, because they're right there, and they're in 14 different countries, 3 different continents, all around the world, and we're all at home in that space, which that's another blessing, being able to create something for other people too.
Yes. Yeah. And as you talked about like creating community, do you think that like the friendships that you create, is that like a process or just something that happens?
I truly believe that we attract people who will be blessed by us and who we can bless. I don't think anyone would come to me if they were looking for a straight shot to the top, straight business, kind of person to be their mentor. I tend to attract the broken ones, the ones that are trying their hardest to fix themselves and to help themselves. And I basically go, come on, it's safe here, and that is not instant, because often people have been hurt. Often people like myself struggle to trust even themselves, let alone anyone else. It's a slow burn. The key to it is consistency. And I teach this across every job I have. If I tell you I'm going to check in with you, I check in with you. I don't let you down like other people have. If I tell you, let's brainstorm and let's, see how you feel about this. There's no judgment. There's no one's ever going to should anyone, I'm not going to tell you what you should do. And I think just allowing people to dip their toes until they're comfortable to wade in, whether it's on a business level, a personal level, or a friendship level, that's kind of the way I go about everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it does fit, it is kind of like a process, like you open up the doors, and when people are ready either for more friendship or something else, that they can come in.
Yeah, 100%. I would say there's a good 50% of my quote unquote team who are only there because they found a community that they love. Like, honestly, I'm not saying that there aren't people that are serious business people, because there are, but and even in my day job, you know, with the kids in the schools and stuff, it's the same thing. I don't just go in September and go, hey, I'm Hannah, you have to like and trust me and talk about your mental health. You know, it's the same thing. It's like, tell them a bit of my story, open the door when they're ready to open up, then they share their stories, and it's kind of softly, right?
Yeah. And I think that is a really good point in friendship too. Like us being willing to open up first, right? And to go there, right? Go have that conversation, be open, be share of ourselves, and then be open to hear about them too.
Mm-hmm.
It's really.
And I think for a lot of people, when they are quote unquote lonely, is often because that door is shut. So they're not letting anyone in because they're not letting any of themselves out. And I know that was my thing. Even my addiction, all of that was because I was keeping everything locked in. My light, my goodness, my everything that people love about me now, my integrity, it was all being kept hidden, and that's where the loneliness is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how did you start opening up? How did you start opening up to letting more of you out?
Well, I mean, it's traumatic, right? Because you haven't always done, no one is perfect. Nobody has lived a perfect life. And anyone who stands there and says they've never done anything wrong is lying. But I think when you've had struggles similar to mine, and recovery, by the way, I don't limit that to addictions. I think recovery can be from PTSD, childhood, poor relationships, bad parents. Like, you can literally be in recovery from physical ailments, like anything. Mm-hmm. So when you're in recovery, one of the hardest things to do is release that shame that you carry, so that you can shine and share your story, so that others. So I have this phrase that I use all the time: I recover loudly so that others don't die quietly.
Yes.
And that is my like manifesto whenever I'm scared to do a live or have a conversation with someone, talk about the hard things, because I made a promise to myself and everything that I would recover loudly. And so when I'm having one of those days where it feels hard to open up, or it feels hard to shine my light, that's what I say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like you've touched on such a good point about when we release shame. And over the past year, like, I wrote a book about unexpected pregnancy, but it was of my story of being a teen mom. And for so long, I had hidden that part of me, that part of my story, because I didn't want to get any more shame comments or anything like that. But when
get that shame off me. Yeah.
It was almost like I was hiding, trying to have this perfect front. But when I stood in that place and shared loudly from that place, and hope to people who are in the place that I was, I've noticed that shame has disappeared.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer hiding.
You open the door and it goes.
Yes. So now it's power in my story instead of something to hide from. Because I've claimed it, I've walked through it. Yep, that is a part of my life, but I'm still over here. I'm continuing.
Mm-hmm.
So
it sounds like really wishy-washy for me to say, like, there is no secret to it, you just have to do it. But really, as blasé as that sounds, you do just have to open that door and let the chips fall where they will, because it's going to be messy. Moving away from home is messy. Being on your own is messy. Reaching for not necessarily the same behaviors I did, but comforting behaviors is messy. When really, if you just opened it up and went, I'm scared, I'm lonely, I'm in a foreign place, or I'm doing something new or whatever, we're often so scared to feel those feelings that we quickly try and shut that door with whatever method we can, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's shutting that door that actually creates the loneliness.
Right? It's like a what do you call it? Vicious circle.
Yeah. Yeah. So to the women who are struggling to make friendship, what other advice do you have for them?
Oh gosh, so many things. So for me, making friendships came after my recovery, because when you're hanging around that lifestyle, friends, and I'm going to use the quote marks there, come easily, right? Because like attracts like. When you are forging your own path, and whether that's moving or getting clean or whatever your path is, that's when it becomes difficult. So I couldn't work because I didn't have a work visa after I had my kids, and I was waiting for my permanent residency, and that was the same time that I got clean. And so I went and volunteered at a local, it's like an employment agency, but they did English lessons for newcomers. So me and my two babies, my little boy was in school, we would show up and I would teach people how to do the English to pass their test for residency, for citizenship, that kind of stuff. So I think volunteering with a purpose, with something that you have a passion about, is a real key. I actually don't advocate go find a mum group or go find a kid group, because you're already, if you are a mum, you're already that, right? You need to find something that lights your fire, that fills your cup a little bit. Mm-hmm. Making friends is so much easier when there are people around you that enjoy the same things as you. So if you like books, find a book club. If you like to go watch the hockey, then go watch the hockey. Even if you have no one to go with, you'll soon start chatting to someone. I love movies. I met my best friend in the whole world here at the movie theater because we were both there on our own.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the perfect place to meet people. And then you already have something in common, right?
Exactly. And that's kind of my thing. And it might be something in common outside of you're a homesteader or you're a wife or you're a parent, whatever. It's kind of more personal than that. It's something that is your happy place.
Yes, that's awesome. So kind of going back to what we're talking about earlier in our conversation about mindset, how do you think mindset plays a role in adjusting to a new area? I
have an issue with the term mindset, and here's why. I like to call it mind flow, because mindset implies that it's set. And I don't think it should be, because you can have one concept or mind flow in one place and it doesn't necessarily translate to physically where you are or where you are in your life. So I think that's the first thing. I think it's opening that up and allowing it to be something fluid is really important. I think that when you're in a new place, being open to things that are very different to what you know is the key, because that was the mistake I made, and that's how I ended up in the same life but in a different country 5,000 miles away, because it was comfortable and easy. I wished, looking back now with hindsight, I had joined the skiing groups and the golf groups but I didn't. I joined the party groups because that was what I knew. So I think your mindset should be that everything is new, every day is new, and the place is new, and see what appeals to you rather than what you know.
Yeah. Be open to new things, right? New adventures.
Definitely.
Yeah. So how can the listeners connect with you today?
Wow. I am old school, so I have Facebook. My full name is Hannah Fitzgerald. I have a little page called Sovereign Wellness. It's primarily focused on my network marketing business. I also I'm actually a recovery coach for a UK-based recovery charity, which is called Dry Wave Events, and I do some shows on there throughout the week. But if you go to my Instagram, it's probably the easiest because I have a little like link tree on my Instagram bio, and my Instagram is H4N. So it looks like Han, but it's a number 4 in the middle, Fitzgerald, my last name, and it's easy to find me. And you can kind of connect with me on any subject there. My inbox is always open. So
Okay, awesome. Well, what are some last words of encouragement for the listeners today?
I would say follow your heart always. If you're being led to do something like a big move, like a big change, I would say, discern obviously where that pull is coming from, and follow it for sure. I would not be the person I am today if I hadn't made the move. I would not have 3 incredible kids and a husband who I adore and 2 jobs that I love if I hadn't been bold and made that move. And my dog, who I lost in May, wouldn't have had a 14-year adventure in the mountains. So
yes,
be brave, I would say.
All right. Well, thank you. It's been such a good conversation. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome. I've just loved it. Thank you.